North Korea is a place wrapped in secrecy, fear, and ruthless control. But what happens behind its heavily guarded borders is way more disturbing than most people imagine. While the world sees parades, missiles, and a fat dictator, hidden behind the scenes are punishment methods so brutal and twisted, they feel like something straight out of a horror film. From soul-crushing labor camps to chilling interrogation techniques, these aren't just punishments, they're tools of pure domination. So get ready, because we're exposing 15 worst punishment methods ever used in North Korea. Number 15. Smiling penalties. On July 8th, North Koreans mourn the death of Kim Il-sung, not in spirit, but in mandated performance. The expectation is public sorrow, total emotional submission. No one dares to crack a smile, not even by accident. The risk? Imprisonment, interrogation, or worse. Schools force children to rehearse grief. Offices demand visible mourning. Families huddle in silence, careful not to misstep. The regime's grip on emotion turns a national holiday into a surveillance test. Defectors have shared stories of people being dragged away simply for seeming indifferent. Not celebrating isn't the crime. Failing to grieve with enough passion is. Joy becomes a risk. Individual feeling is a liability. Even the youngest kids are taught that their faces must align with party expectations. One wrong look can mean trouble for an entire household. The government doesn't just control speech or action. It demands ownership of how you feel, what you show, and when you're allowed to express it. Even your facial expression belongs to the state. Number 14. Medical experiments on prisoners. Defectors have reported what sounds like totally science fiction, but it's 1000% real. In North Korea's political prison camps, inmates aren't just punished, they're experimented on. Political prisoners, defectors, and religious minorities are among those used for forced testing. No consent, no medical ethics, just human lives are treated like disposable lab tools. Some were injected with unknown chemicals. Others were deliberately exposed to biological agents to observe the effects. Many didn't survive. Those who did often lived with irreversible damage. In other cases, prisoners were promised better treatment or early release if they volunteered. A lie to get compliance. Forced sterilizations were common, especially against those the regime deemed genetically or politically undesirable. These experiments serve two twisted purposes: developing chemical and biological weapons, and breaking down human resistance to the regime. There's no hospital, there's no oversight. Only pain, silence, and the certainty that if you scream, no one's coming. The regime doesn't just hurt people. It rewrites what pain is for. Number 13. Starvation as punishment. Hunger in North Korea isn't just an economic failure, it's a deliberate method of control. If you don't believe it, just Google it or read some NY Times posts. The ruling elite never miss a meal, but ordinary people scrape through life hunting for scraps. During the 1990s famine, known as the Arduous March, millions died. Not from lack of food alone, but from the state choosing who deserved to eat. And when someone steps out of line, food becomes the first thing stripped away. In political prison camps, starvation isn't a side effect, it's the sentence. Inmates are left with just enough to stay alive, sometimes forced to eat weeds, tree bark, or rodents to avoid collapsing. Outside the camps, people risk their lives trading in black markets just to feed their families. But getting caught means prison, or worse. Starvation becomes more than suffering. It becomes a strategy. A quiet, drawn-out punishment that keeps people too weak to rebel, too scared to speak. It's not just cruelty, it's a system designed to make obedience the only option. Number 12. Western clothing ban. In North Korea, what you wear could decide your fate. Items like denim jeans, branded t-shirts, or anything that screams Western are seen as symbols of rebellion. The regime treats clothing as political allegiance. Wearing the wrong thing means aligning with the enemy. Citizens are expected to stick to traditional dress, especially during public events. The hanbok, while culturally significant, has been turned into a tool for enforcing conformity. Young guys, especially those who glimpse foreign trends through smuggled media, are caught in a quiet rebellion, craving the freedom to simply choose their clothes. But that choice comes with a price. People have been fined, shamed in public squares, and even imprisoned for something as small as a pair of jeans. State patrols conduct random wardrobe checks. Fashion becomes a trap. It's not about modesty or pride, it's about control. The regime fears outside influence, and style is just another front in that war. Wearing something different in the wrong place at the wrong time is a gamble with real consequences. Number 11. Assassinations abroad. North Korea doesn't just go after enemies at home. Its reach stretches across borders, and sometimes it kills. Kim Jong-nam, estranged half-brother of Kim Jong-un, was poisoned in broad daylight at Malaysia's Kuala Lumpur airport in 2017. Two women walked up to him and smeared VX nerve agent across his face. Within minutes, he was dead. They claimed they thought it was a prank show. North Korea claimed innocence. Nobody believed either this wasn't a one-off hit. It was a message. The regime has a history of targeting defectors, critics, and high-profile enemies abroad. Some are taken out with poison, others with bombs or bullets. South Korean intelligence has foiled several of these plots, but not all. Even exile doesn't mean escape. Diplomats double as spies. Businessmen hide covert missions. And when the regime decides you're a threat, the punishment isn't arrest, it's erasure. One wrong move, one word too loud, and the state could come knocking, whether you're in Seoul, Malaysia, or halfway across the world. Number 10. Otto Warmbier sits arrest and death. Well, now this one is famous. In early 2016, Otto Warmbier, a 21-year-old college student from the University of Virginia, joined a guided tour to North Korea. While staying at the Yanggakdo International Hotel in Pyongyang, he allegedly tried to take down a propaganda poster. What would have been shrugged off as a college prank anywhere else turned into a life-destroying offense. North Korean authorities arrested him and slapped him with a sentence of 15 years of hard labor for hostile acts. The trial lasted barely an hour. A year later, Otto was returned to the U.S. in a coma. He had severe brain damage, and doctors said the injuries happened long before his release. North Korea blamed botulism and a sleeping pill, something no medical expert found credible. Otto died 6 days later, on June 19, 2017. His death sparked international outrage and exposed the regime's violent disregard for human rights. What happened to him wasn't justice, it was a message, a warning, and the cost was a young man's life. Number 9. Teenagers punished for watching K-dramas. Footage leaked from inside North Korea shows teenage girls lined up, trembling under the gaze of armed officers. Their crime? Well, you won't believe it, but it was not some kind of terror act. They were just watching a South Korean drama. In North, that's not curiosity, it's treason. The girls were forced to confess, humiliated in front of a crowd, and then hauled off, likely to prison camps. K-pop, Korean dramas, Western movies, all labeled as spiritual pollution. The state bans anything that doesn't reinforce its propaganda. Even music or fashion from across the border is treated like a virus. And yet, it still spreads. USB drives, CDs, smuggled across the border or dropped by balloons, carry stories that show North Koreans another kind of life. What terrifies the regime isn't the content, it's the connection. These dramas offer more than entertainment. They offer hope, and for the North Korean government, that's a bigger threat than any military force. Because once someone sees the outside world, it's hard to pretend it doesn't exist. Number 8. Labor camp conditions. Life inside North Korea's labor camps is engineered for suffering. Overcrowded cells stink of rot, disease spreads unchecked, and prisoners sleep in shifts because there's never enough room. The air is thick with sweat and fear, and the food, if you can call it that, is barely enough to survive on. A few spoonfuls of watery gruel, maybe a crust of moldy bread, And if you're desperate, whatever insects or weeds you can scavenge without being seen. People don't just starve here, they waste away. Labor is forced, brutal, and relentless. From sunrise to nightfall, inmates mine, haul, dig, and break themselves to meet impossible quotas. If they fall short, beatings are guaranteed. If they resist, they vanish. Medical care doesn't exist. You work until you collapse, and then you work more. This isn't a prison, it's a system designed to erase people slowly. The camps don't just crush the body, they erase identity, break spirit, and leave nothing behind but obedience and silence. What do you think about it? Well, drop your comment below. Number 7. Fear control. Every glance, every word, every silence in North Korea carries weight. People monitor their own speech, censor their own emotions, and rehearse loyalty daily, not out of respect, but for survival. The regime doesn't need cameras on every corner when your neighbor could be an informant. Even children are trained to report parents or classmates for disloyalty. Schools drill it in early, silence is safety, but loyalty is everything. Conversations stay surface level. Trust barely exists. Public executions and staged punishments are tools to keep fear alive, not just for the accused, but for the watchers. Everyone watches. Everyone knows someone who disappeared. The government doesn't just demand obedience, it breeds paranoia, creating a society that polices itself. This internalized fear is passed down like a tradition. State-run media fuels it daily, painting enemies everywhere. South Korea, the US, even ideas. Anything unfamiliar becomes dangerous. Fear isn't just a byproduct of oppression, it's the foundation holding the system together, the invisible chain that keeps millions from ever stepping out of line. Number 6. Movement restrictions. In North Korea, freedom of movement is a myth unless you're part of the ruling elite or a Kim special guy. Ordinary citizens need written approval to travel between cities, and even then they face intense scrutiny. Permits are rarely granted unless there's an official reason tied to work or state business. Trying to visit family? Not good enough. Getting caught without authorization can mean arrest, forced labor, or worse. This policy doesn't just trap individuals, it rips families apart. Some people go decades without seeing loved ones simply because a signature never came through. And it doesn't stop at internal travel. Borders are locked down, heavily patrolled, and soaked in paranoia. Defecting isn't just dangerous, it's a potential death sentence. If one person escapes, their entire family back home might pay the price. This brutal method of punishment keeps people frozen in place. Every road becomes a risk. Every train station, a checkpoint. The result? A nation where even the idea of visiting your hometown feels like rebellion. Number 5. The war on K-pop. K-pop isn't just music to North Korea, it's a loaded weapon. The regime labels it ideological poison, blaming it for sparking rebellion, curiosity, and hope. That's why owning a Blackpink album or watching a BTS video can land you in prison, or worse, distributing K-pop can mean public execution. These are real stakes, not scare tactics. Families have been punished as a unit, dragged into labor camps because a teenager had a USB drive full of pop songs. The fear runs deep. What terrifies the regime is how K-pop connects people. Its messages of freedom, love, and self-expression clash directly with North Korea's playbook of silence and obedience. Meanwhile, state media pumps out knockoff music videos trying to mimic that glossy style, cheerful performers in choreographed routines, but it's all surface, no soul, no choice. The same system that bans K-pop tries to replicate it, terrified of the real thing. Because once people hear it, they remember what freedom sounds like. Alright guys, now let's head over to number 4. Generational punishment. North Korea takes punishment to a level that feels almost medieval, punishing families for the actions of a single person. It's called guilt by association. And it's not just rhetoric. If one person is accused of treason or defection, their entire bloodline can be sent to labor camps. Parents, siblings, children, even distant relatives get caught in the fallout. Many grow up never knowing why they were imprisoned in the first place. This system doesn't just silence one voice, it chokes an entire family tree. Generational punishment creates an atmosphere so paranoid that people censor their own thoughts out of fear for their loved ones. Defectors have spoken about the haunting guilt they carry, knowing their escape might have doomed those they left behind. Children born in these camps grow up without rights, stripped of education, jobs, or even a basic identity. The regime isn't just punishing the past, it's infecting the future. It's psychological warfare disguised as justice, and it keeps everyone terrified to even think of disobedience. Number 3. Kwan-Liso camps. Buried deep in North Korea's mountains are the Kwan-Liso camps, political prisons that exist far from the world's eyes, but not far from horror. These aren't correctional facilities, they're factories of suffering. Once someone enters, it's not about guilt or innocence, it's about disappearance. People vanish behind barbed wire and are stripped of names, rights, and purpose. Cells overflow with bodies, disease runs unchecked, and food barely qualifies as sustenance. Some prisoners sleep in shifts, shoulder to shoulder, while others die slowly from untreated infections or starvation. The work is constant, grinding, punishing, and often deadly. Mining, logging, construction, if you can't keep up, you're punished. If you speak out, you're silenced. Guards operate without consequence. Families are locked in together, generations growing up behind electric fences, never knowing anything else. Children born in these camps don't get an education. They don't get futures, they get survival if they're lucky. These camps aren't just about punishment, they're a permanent scar on the soul of a nation held captive by silence. Number 2. Anti-aircraft executions. In a regime obsessed with spectacle, death becomes theater. In 2015, General Hyun Yong-chol reportedly fell asleep during a meeting with Kim Jong-un. A mistake like that in most places would get you fired. In North Korea, it got him obliterated by anti-aircraft guns. Not quietly, not discreetly, in front of a crowd. What should have been a disciplinary moment turned into a public annihilation, an execution method usually reserved for war zones used on one man as a warning to thousands. It wasn't just about punishment, it was about shock. It was about control. Anti-aircraft guns don't just kill, they erase. The message was clear. Even a powerful military figure isn't safe from total destruction. The regime needs loyalty, not competence. Fear, not respect. And when someone wavers even slightly, it retaliates with maximum force. This method of execution isn't about efficiency, it's about scale. It's about burning fear into the collective memory of a nation. It's about power that refuses to be questioned, no matter the cost. Number 1. Communication restrictions. Staying connected is illegal in North Korea, unless it's with a state-approved device feeding you propaganda. The internet doesn't exist for the public. Instead, there's Kwangmyong, a closed, censored intranet with only state-run websites. Phones, heavily restricted. Calls outside the country are banned. Even texting is limited and monitored. Every conversation is a risk. Say the wrong thing and someone might report you, especially since informants are everywhere. Parents warn kids. Neighbors whisper about who's been too curious. Defectors have said that getting caught watching a South Korean drama or listening to foreign music could mean years in a labor camp. Still, people risk it. Smuggled phones, USB drives, and radios offer a glimpse of a freer world. But freedom comes with consequences. Families of defectors often vanish or are interrogated, and defectors themselves lose contact with loved ones forever. Communication, in most places, is a basic right. In North Korea, it's treated like contraband. Information is dangerous. Curiosity is a crime. And silence is survival. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon.